this radio station. Its programs and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackey's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, which you can find on revolution.radio. That's right, show number 625, 520, and 600. Too sweet to be sour, too sour to be dour. Not sure what that means. But here we are with another hour of the Shiny Side Out. And bear in mind, we take liberties, okay, with your perception of reality. We are not going to shy away from telling you what you know is probably wrong. And if you can't handle that, this is your ticket off the bus. Okay? Because we have, and we will again make you feel that way, that special way. Yes, that is true. Because that's our job.
I thought I was sitting next to Rosa Parks in for a minute.
Right? What? Anyway, now... The important thing is this, that we are, in fact, listener funded in here, and if you can donate, that'd be great. If you can't, that's okay too. Maybe you can tell people at the station, that'll work just fine too. Now, having said all of that, the Shiny Side Out does question consensus reality. Let's call it that.
Yes, that's true.
And as part of that, we're talking about... we talked quite a bit about the Kozyrev mirror, as you know. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about that, and then now we have gone into remote viewing and how it was used by the military, etc. Now we started off by saying what the consensus view was, of the scientific consensus view, which of course was, nothing to see here. Nothing ever happened. Didn't work. Well, if it did happen, it didn't work. Okay, it just didn't work. Didn't give us any intelligence. Okay. That was the official statement around remote viewing and most of the extrasensory perception research. It's just nonsense, right? Well, I think we all know that is not the truth, right? Because a lot of money was sunk into it at a time when that kind of research was critical during the Cold War. The USSR did it, the USA did it, and many other countries did it as well. Make no mistake. And Yuri Geller is actually Israeli, just in case you're wondering. So. What did we do then? Then we looked at the practitioner, their testimony. This is what happens, and this is how it happens. Okay, this was Karen T. Hluchon. And then, and more recently, we started looking, like last week, we looked at some of the scientific investigations, right? And this is what we're doing today. We're continuing that. It was a clairvoyant remote viewing, the US-sponsored psychic spying, and this was from this is a strategic analysis, which is a monthly journal of the IDSA. The author was M. Srinivasan, former associate director at BARC. And then after that, because it's not that long an article, we can get through it. We can probably get through it. The next one we have then is actually a follow-up on the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency's remote viewing experiments. Okay, and we'll put the link in the chat if you like. This was undertaken by Alex Escola-Garçon, James Huron, Neil Dagnall, Kenneth Drinkwater, and Andrew Donovan. And the objectives of that particular one, I'm going to just share it with you very quickly. Since 1972, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, commissioned several research programs on remote viewing, RV, that were progressively declassified from 1995 to 2003. The main objectives of this research were to statistically replicate the original findings and address the question, what are the underlying cognitive mechanisms involved in RV? The research focused on emotional intelligence theory and intuitive information processing as possible hypothetical mechanisms. So that's fun. That's once we finish this particular article, which is also research-based, and it looks at the efficacy of remote viewing. So Dave, why don't you take us through the laboratory investigations of remote viewing?
Most certainly. Thank you very much. Double S systematic scientific investigation of telepathy and ESP had been carried out in the US by J.B. Rhine and his associates during the 1930s and the 1940s at Duke's University, using a set of 5 Zener cards containing symbols such as square, circle, star, plus sign, and wavy pattern. One of these cards selected at random would be kept open in one room, and a transmitting agent would focus his mental attention and concentration on the same. A receiver or viewer sitting in an adjacent room would try to guess which card is open. The success rate in such card guessing tests would be recorded. If the experimental hit rate was statistically more significant than the chance expectation rate of 1 in 5 or 20%, it would be interpreted as evidence of a telepathic or ESP mode of information transfer. Unfortunately, to obtain statistically significant results, the experiment had to be repeated thousands of times, and this led to decline effects due to boredom or tiredness on the part of the remote viewer. To overcome this problem, parapsychology researchers at SRI started using a set of pictures taken from the National Geographic magazine instead of the Zener cards. A rank order method of quantifying the success rate was developed for this. The focus of the research then shifted to assessing the success rate in testbed or field trials, where a remote viewer was asked to sense and describe a natural scene or a military site where an agent or beacon was located. Both the transmitting agent at the site and the viewer or receiver sitting in the lab would be asked to fill out an identical 30-point questionnaire with yes as a 1 or no as a 0 marking. This method of assessment was first developed by Princeton University researchers in their Engineering Anomalies research program, while investigating precognitive remote perception, PRP. Using advanced mathematical methods developed in the field of artificial intelligence and pattern recognition, the degree of success of the remote viewer was quantified. In the next stage of research, simulating military spying missions, the presence of the transmitting agent at the target site was dispensed with, and the remote viewer was encouraged to view relevant military targets with the US, given only the latitude and longitude of the target site. A brief summary of the outcome of the research of the anomalous cognition sponsored by the US government is available in Edwin May's website, www.lfr.org. Dr. May was the director of this research at SAIC, when the program was officially terminated in 1995. Meki.
So I was just getting that. Examples of some test bed trials. In the course of the investigations, the SI researchers identified at least 6 star performers. And this is really the important thing here, right? So we can't expect everybody to be able to do this. It's because experiments have been undertaken, and with fairly large test groups as well. The yield was very unconvincing, right? But it's like, you've got like 100 people, and you ask them to play Alla Turco, which is a piece by Mozart on the piano, even if they don't know how to play the piano. And that's what this is. You can't just get people off the street and then expect them to be, psychically gifted. Can you train people? I think you can, right? But you really have to look at people that have a psychic potential. And if you do that, you're already acknowledging that there is something there, right? And I think that's why most experiments do not do that.
Oh, and also, if you're familiar with Ghostbusters, they used EST, so
Correct.
Electric shock treatment for the negative answers. And that
the funny
deterred
thing-
you from doing anything,
but he
except
got
for
it right.
concentrating on the pain.
he started getting it right, whereas of course Bill Murray was flirting with the student, the
That's
attractive
right.
girl,
And still zapping him, even though he got it right.
And he got it completely right. A couple of squealing lines. Oh, I'm sorry. And he goes, looks at her. Should I? And zip. And he zapped him. But yeah, look, it's what it was. But ultimately, you have to find people, in my opinion, that need to be pre-vetted as having some kind of ability. Yeah, and there are tests you can do. By the way, the website is still live. I'm just there now. LFR. www.lfr.org. Anyway, in the course of the investigations, the SI researchers identified at least 6 star performers with an extraordinary inborn remote viewing talent. That's what you have to do, right? In order to get tested, you have to find people that have the talent. While the names of some of them have been revealed, others are only identified by number, or code number rather. Those revealed are briefly mentioned here. There was remote viewing of a high technology site, May 7, 1987, and the viewer was number R372, and we know that is Joe McMonigal now. A primary target site was an electron accelerator at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, the LLNL. The Q supplied name and social security number of an intelligence officer, the target person, unknown to the remote viewer, or others stationed at the SRI lab. And it's important, you have to have some kind of target information. Right, you can't just willy-nilly, go see something now. It doesn't quite work like that. All right. Assignment. Describe the target person's movements and the ambience of his surroundings at 8-hour intervals during a span of 24 hours, right? Which makes for 4 observable periods. Target person's actual movements, besides moving in the LLNL site, the target person also visited the windmill farm just outside the LLNL premises at 4 p.m. The results, a fuzzy set analysis of the various descriptions provided by the receiver showed that the overall accuracy of the remote viewing was 77%, and overall reliability, 78%. So that's pretty high. Mm-hmm. The reliability of the description of the windmill farm was 100%. And accuracy is defined as the percentage of target elements described correctly by the viewer, and reliability as percentage of receiver's response that is correct. Make sense? That's what those 2 measures actually measure.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
A second one, swimming pool complex at Rinneconda Park in Palo Alto in 1974. There's a bit of time between these. The viewing was carried out by Pat Price, who was described by Russell Targ as one of their psychic treasures. The target was selected randomly from a target pool of sites unknown to Pat Price or Russell Targ, who were stationed inside a Faraday cage in the radiophysics building of SRI International Labs. So not just secluded, but in a Faraday cage. Hell put off, and an associate, Bart, drove off to the target site, which was 5 miles away. After the allotted time of 30 minutes, Pat Price was asked to view and describe the target site. Pat said that he saw a circular pool of water about 100 feet in diameter. It was actually 110 feet, so that's not too bad. He also saw a rectangular pool 60 feet by 80 feet. It was actually 75 by 100. He went on to describe a concrete blockhouse, which was also at the site. He drew a diagram of the complex. Pat said the site seemed to be a water purification plant and drew 2 water storage tanks and some rotating machinery such as pumps, etc. After completing the drawing description, all of them drove to the site to assess the accuracy of Pat's viewing. Everything was remarkably accurate except for the 2 water tanks and the water purification plant, which were absent. Pat Price's inclusion of the non-existent tanks remained a puzzle for 21 years. However, the mystery was unexpectedly solved in March of 1995 when, as part of the centennial celebrations of the city of Palo Alto, a commemorative volume was published. This brochure carried a picture of the Rinconada Park site taken in 1913 on the occasion of the inauguration of the city's new waterworks, showing 2 water tanks exactly at the location indicated by Pat Price in his 1974 viewing.
That's awesome.
I know, right? This amazing example brings out one of the remarkable features of remote viewing, namely the ability of consciousness to access the past. In RV literature, it is referred to as retrocognition. while in ancient Indian texts it is described as accessing the Akashic records, which we've spoken of before. But it would also, see, this is the thing though, right? So you're given a target location. Here it is. This is, go and look at it. And I think there was never any time coordinates given, like now or whatever, right? Just go look at the target location. Mm-hmm. So, but what it does, Dave, it tells us, now if this is true, we always have to presuppose that all of this is true, right? If it is true, then our understanding of space-time is completely incorrect. Because you have a place here, right? But the place is physical, there it is, right? Mm-hmm. But time seems to be a variable of lesser importance. Because you look at the site in its totality, if you will, right? Or in its most prominent features, even through time. And I think, and I'm getting way off field here, but I need to say this. We see ghosts all the time, and ghost trains, and they talk about ghost this and ghost. So people have these experiences, right? Now we can say they're all liars, it's all nonsense. That means you should no longer listen to the show. You turn the radio off now. But let's just say these people aren't lying to us, but they've seen these things. Okay. So is it then possible that certain things leave a shadow, footprint, some kind of image in time of a place? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like almost like a shadow that falls across time, that can then be perceived by someone that has the capability, the capacity of higher perception. And see, this whole thing. Because if it was remote viewing, you just see something that's far away. Okay, well, case closed. Remote viewing works, and it seems to be some kind of extrasensory perception. But it's clearly a linear thing and time bound, right? It is easy. Okay, I mean, still people have problems with it, but at least this is pretty straightforward and simple. This though, this opens up such a broad scope of possibilities. Let me put it this way: what if we could remote view the crucifixion of Jesus Christ? Mm-hmm. Remote view the burning of Rome. Remote view the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Remote view the last moments of Hitler in his bunker.
Oh, the building of the pyramids. There's a list.
All of that.
A great list. When the Anunnaki landed for the first time, yeah. Dude.
And you know what? I reckon we have.
I reckon we have.
Done that. Anyways, tell us about the rings of planet Jupiter.
Ingo Swann, the famous psychic who was in fact responsible for getting Hal Puthoff and his colleague at SRI Labs interested in investigating the boundary between the animate and inanimate in 1972, suggested carrying out an experiment to remote view the planet Jupiter before the upcoming NASA Pioneer 10 flyby. Much to the chagrin of Ingo Swann and the SRI researchers, he found a ring around Jupiter and wondered if perhaps he had remote viewed the planet Saturn by mistake. But when Pioneer 10 flyby did take place, it confirmed the existence of rings around Jupiter.
I remember that.
I know, right? Interestingly, is it Pune-based medical doctor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. By the name of Dr. P.V. Vartak has contacted... Pune. Has contacted this writer and sent newspaper clippings describing his astral visits to the Moon, Mars and Jupiter. I've got a little story here. It's only very slight. So my mother said that, because she practiced remote viewing, and she practiced going back in time, forward in time, a whole bunch of things, concentrate, relax, and you've got to get into a state where you're not actually thinking anything in your own head, right? And I've mentioned this before in the show, how to practice that and just don't think anything. It's very, very difficult for a lot of people. It isn't something, I wonder how long it's been. No, that disqualifies you. You can't think that. So once you get to that state of meditation, then you should be able to then reach into the past or somewhere else. Remote viewing, right? RV. So she tried the pyramids, and she tried the moon. She was told no, she wasn't allowed to look at the moon, believe it or not. because she wanted to know more about it. And she did a bunch of those experiments, and surprisingly was told she couldn't see the moon, and she wasn't allowed yet to learn about the pyramids. And I thought that was extraordinary.
Is that right? That's actually I mean, what do you say to that? You go, okay, that's what? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So who's the gatekeeper then?
Exactly. And what is it that we don't want anyone to see, including?
Yeah, I think it's secondary. Yeah, you're right. So
wow.
I know. So I haven't bothered to try, because I have tried. Oh, I've tried. I've tried all sorts of things that I've realized I think people can do, and I've tried to do them myself. And I'll tell you more about those as time goes on. I won't reveal them now. But Mackie, back to the show notes.
Is it my turn? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. Examples of operational assignments. So these are assignments, obviously, that were given by the intelligence agencies. The following are brief summaries of some very interesting operational assignments, as reported in the declassified remote viewing literature. Okay, at one point classified, not classified, now freely available, more or less. If you can find your way through the redaction, and I've, as you all know, Dave as well, I've had lots of fun with it. Where in fact I found, like 5 pages missing. I go, what this doesn't make any sense. Anyway, first one, radio listening post Urals in 1974. That's in Russia. It's a mountain chain in the Soviet Union. A receiver volunteered to scan the Soviet Union for a radio listening post and aimed to have found one located at latitude 65 degrees, 0 minutes and 57 seconds north, and longitude 59 degrees, 59 minutes and 59 seconds east. Not the astonishing precision in pinpointing the astonishing precision in pinpointing geographical coordinates. That's a pretty, there's not much room for error here, right, if you give coordinates like that. The receiver then described the detailed geographical features of the surroundings of the site as follows. Elevation is 6,200 feet, is scrubby brush, tundra-type ground hummocks, rocky outcroppings, mountains with fairly steep slopes, facing north for about 60 miles, ground slopes to marshland. A mountain chain runs off to the right, about 35 degrees east of north. Facing south, mountains run fairly north and south. Facing west, mountains drop down to foothills for 60 miles or so. Some rivers running roughly north. Facing east, mountains are rather abrupt, dropping to rolling hills and to flat land. Area side underground, reinforced concrete, doorways of steel, of the roll-up type. Unusually high ratio of women to men, at least at night. I see some helipads, concrete. Light rail tracks run from pads to another set of rails that parallel the doors into the mountain. 30 miles north, 5 degrees west of north. Off the side is a radar installation with one large 165-foot dish and 10 small fast-track dishes. Now, the above report was verified by personnel in the sponsor organization as being substantially correct. Substantially correct. Dave?
This is B, Nuclear Research Center at Semipalatinsk in the former Soviet Union, July 1974. This was CIA's very first operational viewing assignment. The viewer, we have lighting where I am at the moment. If I go offline, Mackie, take the station.
Yeah, sure.
The viewer was Pat Price. Pat was asked to describe what was located at a suspected underground nuclear testing site in a former Soviet Union known by the code PNUTS, Peanuts. CIA indicated that it was of great interest to them. They had in their possession a spy satellite photograph of the site. The viewer was given only the geographical coordinates of the site in degrees, minutes and seconds. This type of viewing has been referred to as coordinate remote viewing. Pat was also told that the site was an R&D test facility The government's representative decided if the viewer described either the known multi-story crane or odd structures resembling oil well derricks, then they would continue. Pat's description of this remote site, in his own words, was, quote, "I am lying on my back on the roof of a 2 or 3 storied brick building. It's a sunny day. The sun feels good. There's this most amazing thing. There is a gigantic crane moving back and forth over my head. As I drift up in the air and look down, it seems to be riding on a track with one rail on each side of the building. I've never seen anything like that." End quote. This viewing assignment continued for a couple of weeks, during which he drew pictures of the gigantic gantry crane and many other items at the site, such as a cluster of compressed gas cylinders, which were also visible in the satellite pictures. The gantry crane was moving on 8 large wheels, 2 on each of the 4 legs. This unique feature was confirmed by the satellite photos. The remarkable similarity of his drawing of the crane and the satellite photo can be seen in Ed May's website, edifado.org again. In later sessions, Pat described the activities in the interior of the building on top of which he was lying earlier. He explained that people were assembling a giant 60-foot diameter metal sphere using thick metal gauze like sections of an orange peel. But the workmen were having trouble welding it all together as the pieces were warping. It's a very thin metal. They were therefore looking for a lower temperature welding material. SRI researchers were later told that the site was the super secret Soviet atomic bomb laboratory in Semipalatinsk. They also learned 3 years later from a news item published in Aviation Week magazine that the sphere was about 58 feet in diameter, was intended to capture and store energy from a nuclear-driven explosive or pulse power generators. Russell Targ has commented that the accuracy of Price's drawing is the sort of thing that I, as a physicist, would never have believed if I had not seen it for myself. Mackie.
The next one is rather unusual and spectacular. In fact, it's called a spectacular example of pre-cognitive remote viewing. It was carried out by Joe McMoneagle in September of 1979. The mission was spy satellite photographs had shown a suspicious heavy construction activity around a building located 100 meters from a large body of water somewhere in northern Russia. The National Security Council, the NSC, wanted to know what was going on there. The assignment was Joe was given only the geographical coordinates, latitude and longitude, and asked to describe the site. So no context, just the location. When Joe said it was a cold location near a body of water with large buildings and smokestack, etc., the NSC was satisfied that he was probably at the right site. They then showed him the satellite for a photograph in their possession and asked him to find out what was going on inside the building. Joe said, "The interior is very large and noisy, active working area full of scaffolding, girders, and blue flashes, probably arc welding." He took a break and continued in another session, probably a huge submarine under construction. And he draws a sketch with dimensions and so forth. A long flat deck, strangely angled missile tubes, about 18 to 20 in number. A new type of mechanism to drive the submarine, maybe nuclear powered, and a double hull. At this point, the NSC representatives figured that Joe must be wrong, because if what he said was true, it would be the world's biggest submarine. No U.S. intelligence agency had ever heard of it. The U.S. didn't possess a submarine this large. Okay, now it's very, very, very big. Besides, who would build a submarine in a building so far from water? How would they launch it? But since Joe had acquired the reputation of being very accurate, the NSC asked him to view the future and find out when it would be launched. Joe scanned the future month by month and said the Russians would blast the channel to connect the building with a body of water and launch the submarine in 4 months. Now, confirmation. In January of 1980, this exactly as predicted by Joe, spy satellite pictures confirmed the launching of the world's biggest submarine after construction of artificial channel connecting the building to the water. It had 20 missile tubes, a large flat deck, etc., exactly as described by Joe. This example brings out spectacularly the non-local nature of consciousness, not only in space, but also in time and even into the future. So not just the past, which we, I guess we could accept has happened, but rather the future, which we think hasn't happened yet.
Oh, and you'd be wrong.
Right? That's the thing.
Yeah, totally.
What?
What? Time is nothing. It's irrelevant.
Sure.
So, what was that time machine, Joe? What do we want? Time machine.
Time machine.
When do we want it?
Doesn't matter.
All right. So this is D in the list of the 4 items. So it'd be the 4th. Location of hostage being held in Lebanon, February 1988. The US Defense Intelligence Agency asked where Marine Colonel William Higgins was being held as hostage in Lebanon. A viewer said Higgins was in a specific building in a specific South Lebanon village. A released hostage later confirmed that Higgins had probably been in that building at that time. I'll keep going, shall I?
Yeah.
Another example of precognitive remote viewing. This is from 1989. Pentagon asked a viewer about possible Libyan response to US criticism of chemical weapons work at Rabta. The viewer's response: a ship named Petua or Potia would arrive in Tripoli to transport chemicals to an eastern Libyan port. Verification was a ship named Batato. Very close. In fact, arrived in Tripoli and loaded undetermined cargo which was transported to an eastern Libyan port.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the examples. Now, of course, this report also has implications and conclusions, which we're going to share with you now. The intelligence community in the US clearly seems to value RV data whenever it is available. It's a very useful additional input, complementing information gathered through various other means and methods. For example, in the present war against terrorism, there is every reason to speculate that the agencies involved in tracking down Osama bin Laden must have sought the help of some of their reputed remote viewers for whatever value it may be. However, the more important implication of the findings of RV research to humanity as a whole perhaps is that it serves to validate the age-old concept of many Eastern wisdom traditions that have always emphasized the non-local nature of human consciousness. And thus it serves to provide some degree of scientific validity to various forms of spiritual and distant healing practices, as emphasized by Russell Targ himself in his 1997 book titled Miracles of Mind. Another very important aspect emerging from RV research is the question of precognition and its implications that's seeing into the future. It again seems to give a measure of scientific credence to various stunning but anecdotal stories of premonitions and remarkably successful predictions, such as that of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, whom we've mentioned numerous times in a number of shows. Princeton University's PAIR group, P-E-A-R, and others have discussed these implications in depth. Precognition touches on some very fundamental philosophical questions regarding free will and causality. In view of the importance and implications of the subject of remote viewing to our understanding of consciousness, and considering that remote viewing had already been discussed in considerable depth in our ancient scriptures, it is high time that the subject be taken up for systematic evaluation at some reputed academic institution or institutions in India. In particular, it would be of great interest to verify if appropriate yogic meditation or other training practices can help to train subjects in developing remote viewing skills as claimed by some yoga schools, or rather scholars, in India. Now, a lot to unpack here, just for a second, right? If all of this is true, right? Even if only a little bit of it is true, it opens up astounding possibilities, obviously, for all of us and for the human race as a whole, in seeing the future, maybe preventing the future. Because, again, this is where we come into cutting-edge science and ancient wisdom, because the two are sort of blurring now. Right? So quantum mechanics tells us we're living in a sea of probabilities. There's no such thing as causality. There's no such thing as a determined outcome. There's no deterministic outcome for anything. However, as we observe something, it will fall into what, I guess, our expectations are of reality. So we, in many ways, shape the outcome that we observe. So if we are observing an outcome in the future that we don't like, the question becomes, can we train ourselves sufficiently to expect a different outcome? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So as we run the double slit experiment, right? We run the double slit experiment, and we're not putting a measuring device at the slits, so we don't know where they're going, the particles, and then we get this whole range of different hits on the screen. Just the particle can do whatever it wants, so it does everything. If it can do whatever it wants, it does everything. Okay, so there's a field, an ocean of probabilities. And some of these probabilities, some of these outcomes are maybe better for us than others, right? You could argue. The question now is this. As we start to measure, and at this point it collapses, are we smart enough, are we aware enough, are we trained up enough to influence perceived outcome to our advantage? Can we steer it away from something? And you know what, Dave?
What's that?
I wonder if that hasn't already been undertaken, this kind of approach, right? To shift consciousness in a certain way to expect a certain outcome, right? Now the remote viewer sees it because, oh, this is what it is. Okay, well, how can we not make that happen? Anyway, I know I'm going all over the shop here, but in the 1950s, and actually, you know what triggered me? I watched a movie called Tomorrowland, 2015 with, what's his name? Completely escaped me now. He's one of the Hollywood greats. It's Brad Pitt, and then there's him.
Keep going.
Sorry?
And I'll find it.
Yeah, anyway. So he's an actor. He was Ocean's 11. He played Ocean in Ocean's 11. Anyway. And he was in it, and essentially he went to this science fair in New York, I think it was, or whatever, the World's Fair.
George Clooney,
of course. And he, as a boy, and he invented a jetpack that he showed to everybody, and everyone was talking about anti-gravity and all wonderful things. And he said it was such a different world back then. Everything was so hopeful, and the way he described it, I thought, yeah, it was a different world. But then something happened in the 50s.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Some of it carried into the 60s. The 60s was still okay, but they were not like the 50s. And then the 70s were completely different, and forget the 80s and 90s. Right? Because we had shifted away from a certain outcome, in my mind. I think where we are today, our expectations, and we put it into art, Dave. Usually the people that are most attuned to the future artists, sensitive souls, right?
Yeah. In
their paintings, in their music, in their writing, whatever it might be.
Movies, yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
100%. And in a lot of those media, the future that we imagine for ourselves beyond the year 2000 is completely different than what we have. And in other ways, it's exactly how we imagined it. Just not as, the best word is probably nice as we thought it might be, right? And I think there was a deliberate effort to steer us off course, to get the collective consciousness of humanity thinking about something else. We don't want you thinking about that anymore. And we don't want you thinking about that anymore. And this ties in again with what has come through, I guess, accidental disclosures, or a little piece of information here and there that states that the cabal, let's call them the parasitic cabal, I don't care what you want to call it, I call them parasites, are 300 years ahead of us, the rest of the world. 300 years. In 1724, there was no United States of America. The British had defeated the Spanish Armada and were now the predominant power in the world, naval power. 1724. Australia had not been settled yet. It had been discovered by the Portuguese and the Spanish and the Dutch, yes, but it hadn't been settled. In 1724. There were some people in the Americas, in the New World, colonists from the French, from the British, other groupings as well. They're all trying to establish colonies in both South and North America. 1724. Now imagine a person from 2024 coming to 1724. We're talking flintlock guns back then.
That's right.
No penicillin. There was indoor plumbing, yes, of a sort. No electricity, which you could meaningfully use for anything. The steam engine, we had the steam engine. We were just about to get the steam engine.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that for a second.
I've got more.
Oh.
What about the number of elderly?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, just the sheer population density would be insane. But, if they came to today, even, they'd be astounded at, there's a flat picture on the wall, but it's moving. And you can talk to people on the other side.
Now, you're 100% correct. It'd be like magic.
Totally.
In fact, the basic fundamentals of the technology we use today wouldn't be understood by people in 1724.
Not at all.
Okay. In fact, the theory of gravity. No theory of gravity yet. No apple on Newton's head. Not yet. Think about that for a second. No Einstein. No evolution. No theory of evolution at that point either. Okay. The scientific method was just being born at that point.
That's right.
Think about that for a second. And here we are in 2024, right? Taking for granted everything, turning on a switch, there's light, talking to your friends across the world, even in space. If you had a friend in space, you could talk to them. You could, wanted to. Been to the moon, etc., all of that stuff, right? And now look at today. Look at what we have today, and then try to extrapolate where we will be, with considering that we don't have any catastrophes or world wars or whatever, right? But let's just say of development, 300 years of development into the future. Where do you think we might be? The mind boggles. In fact, the truth is, we wouldn't have a clue. In fact, this was way before Jules Verne. Jules Verne was 100 years later, right? Predicting most of the things we had in the 20th century. Okay? I mean,
right.
But Swift, 1724, he had written already. I think 1724. I've got to double check, but I think Jonathan Swift had been writing already. But the point is, if you were in 1724 and you came to 2024 and you looked around, you would not understand what was going on. No idea. I mean, you go, what is this? Right? I mean, it would, if you were less robust or of a lesser intellect, let's say, right? It probably drive you mad. You probably couldn't handle it.
I think of all the things you could do to yourself, I keep thinking when people just set themselves on fire, it would be such a difference that they wouldn't be able to cope.
I completely agree. And now imagine us moving 300 years into the future.
Unless, of course, Mecca, you and I, 300 years ago, miraculously came into this time period. I'd be so happy.
Oh, well, yeah. I think that would be... But with our minds as they are, not the knowledge, just our minds as
that's
flexible as they are.
Because I'd be so welcoming to whatever technology there was.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And it does take a very plastic mind. By plastic, I mean something that is malleable, something that can change
you can
without
bend
breaking.
like a reed.
100%. If you can't do that, then it's tough. It really is tough. And I understand why some of the information was held back. I get it. I think some of it was concern for people. I do understand that, right? For the larger, maybe not everybody, but certainly for a number of people, it might have just completely wrecked them. Look, I get it, but now imagine that 300 years from now actually is here today. It's here today, and it was, and I think they changed our perception of reality so that they would have it and we don't. So they steered away from certain things so that the double slit experiment would come and collapse at the point that they wanted it to come and collapse, not where maybe it would have otherwise. Who knows? I mean, all of these things, I mean, none of this research is new. Edgar Cayce, I mean, he operated in the 40s, 1940s.
Yeah.
Okay? In fact, when you go further back, I mean, quantum physics, beginning of the 20th century, relativity, beginning of the 20th century, right? Things like the ether, for example. It's come back, with a vengeance, but it was dead for 30, 40 years. Dave, it was dead.
That's
dead in
right.
the water. Can't talk about the ether. Now you talk about quantum form. What do you think ether is?
That's right.
What do you think the ether is? It's the factual, correct term now is quantum foam.
So just thinking about quantum foam for 1 second, quantum foam is like a pot of water that's boiling. It's the easiest way to describe it. The little bubbles may not rise to the surface but appear and disappear. If you noticed, if you looked at the bottom of a boiling pot, right? Not a fast boil, but a slow boil, and you'll see them some appear and disappear. They kind of, that's what the foam is doing, and it's now theorized that an entire universe could just pop into existence. The entire universe, just like that,
and why not?
In the foam. Yeah, because why not? Exactly. And
that's probably the hardest one, yeah.
And that is where they're saying that the detractors now from the Big Bang are saying, well, rather than there being something and it blew up into existence, maybe there wasn't anything at all. Maybe there wasn't anything and it was the quantum foam that just had a conniption and suddenly, oh, there's a universe. It doesn't matter. But it's doing it all the time, and maybe there's different universes all the time. Maybe they're being made and destroyed at the same time. We don't know.
Look, and that's the thing, right?
It's a great thought.
It
and
is.
I kind of really love the way that that's describing it, because that is because they've measured in their simulations a plus and minus one in a equally zero environment of this foam bubbling in both directions. So kind of, if you want it on a plane of a 2D plane up and down, right? So yeah, something else. I think it's a very good description, but also I still think there's a place on the zero line which I would have to call subspace. I still think that's a thing. I still think it's a thing, and I'll stand by it.
I think, to be honest with you, I think it is whatever we can imagine, and I think it is more even than we can imagine. And I think all of these thought bubbles, let's call them, right? They're all correct. So there are universes and multiverses where this is the case, and there are multiverses and universes where this is not the case.
Yeah, wow.
And it is too big, truly too big for our minds to fully comprehend. So, like, I remember how I told you I thought there's no such thing as fiction. It just doesn't exist. Right?
Because it's just the truth somewhere else.
It is exactly right. So whatever books you love, or comics, I don't care, or movies, whatever you are into, right? Whatever you think is great writing, in my opinion, it is just someone chronicling what they've channeled, and it's because if the multiverse is a reality, right, or the universe is infinite, right? So you get the multiverse, or the universe is infinite. So both could be true, right? Then whatever could exist will exist somewhere. And
that's right.
What you think could, and even things that you can't imagine, will exist somewhere too, because that's the nature of infinite. We can't understand it. we can't understand. And we talk about these. This is really the amazing thing about our brain power, if you will, the ability to put into words, into terms, completely abstract and unknowable, almost ineffable concept like infinite or eternal. It means nothing. It actually means nothing, right? Because it has no bearing on any reality that we understand. If you say infinite, it's just very big, but that doesn't begin to describe it. Eternal is a very long time. Again, doesn't really encapsulate what it actually is, right?
Okay, so, which page of the textbook? Which page of the textbook, Mackie, is your infinity? Because there's 3 different infinities.
Yeah, well, that's another
and
one.
That will do that'll make someone's head pop.
Yes.
And why is there 3? How can there be 3? Isn't there 1? Isn't it just? It's infinite, right? How can there be 3 different ones? And there are, because they used 3 different ways in calculations.
So that doesn't make any sense.
Don't hate me.
No, but it doesn't make any sense to most people, because it doesn't. Right? It's completely. I mean, it's the same as talking about the Trinity, right? And the Catholics say there's Trinity, right? There's Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and God the Father, right? What does it mean? I don't know. And the thing is, no one else knows either. That's the point. We have these abstract terms, right? And we say words. You know, I love this, right? We say words, and then all of a sudden, oh, yeah, okay, well, we said the word, now everything is okay. Like, oh, it's a placebo effect. Oh, right, okay, it's quantum uncertainty. What? Okay.
Well, I want to break everyone's brains right now. Cool, I want to do it because it's important at this point of our show, with so few minutes left, Mackie, to be honest with you. So I've just pasted into the chat room the reason why I discussed that 3 different infinities, because there's the great debate, Mackie, in mathematics about what the answer is to the question of the sum of all the integers, the whole numbers, up to infinity. What is that? And you'd have to say that's a very large number.
Well, it's actually infinity.
Well, it isn't. Mathematically, you can prove this. These math geniuses around the planet have got this down to an art. And the answer is actually -1/12. That's the accepted mathematical answer. To me, that's the E on the calculator when you've given it too many numbers to work out.
So I don't want to rain on your parade, and I agree that it's an amazing concept, but I want to know the underlying assumptions.
Actually, you can actually see that. You can see the example. I've pasted the website, and
thank you.
I'll look at that. It is a trivia question. So I've just armed you with 1 point if you happen to go to a trivia competition at a local bar. All right, and it comes up. Hopefully it does. Let me know if it does.
Dave wants half the money if you win.
You can just send it to me. You can actually just subscribe to our Patreon or whatever you want. Or please like, subscribe, comment, and share our YouTube videos. And try and encourage someone else to listen to us as well if you can. So you want to be the smartest person in the room when someone is at the till at a shop in the olden days, adding up all the things you've bought, and you go, keep going. And they go, but I've emptied your trolley. And you go, no, I'd keep going if I was you. And they go, why? And you go, because you're going to give me -1/12 if you add up all the whole numbers. That's really funny. Imagine the cost of something, they have to give you money. Wouldn't that be funny? I think I've broken Mackie with 1 minute left. Mackie, you can do the exit.
No, I'm just reading through it. So equal is no, but in this example, because you said the underlying assumptions, equal doesn't mean equal. So no. The sum of all the numbers, it says here in the equation, equals -1/12, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, but only if to you an equal sign means something other than is equal to. So I need to read about it. So it's what some person thinks, and I would not take it as gospel, everybody. So just
No,
that's not.
no. The actual reason for it, not this Great Debate website, isn't. There's a full real one, and it does have 2 qualifying equations that lead up to the answer of minus the 12th. All right. So don't go with that argument. That's just someone whose brain was broken and they couldn't type the sentence out correctly of how to describe it.
I'll need to see the equations.
I've seen maths professors. Oh, we've got no time left. I've seen a maths professor tell me if you do an equation one way and then reverse it, you get a different answer, and I think that's extraordinary. And he proved it. So look, this is the end of David Mackey's Shiny Side Out, second hour. We'll see you again 7 a.m. both Tuesday and Thursday for breakfast with Plato's Cave. I made the breakfast part up. Otherwise, we'll see you again for another Shiny Side Out next Sunday. And in the meantime, stay safe.